Today, we're gonna find out how far the new Tesla Model Y long-range all-wheel drive can go on a full charge of battery, and find out if it's actually more efficient than the outgoing model, because it has the same 75 kilowatt hours of usable battery capacity the old model had, but according to WLTP, it has 53 kilometers more range. We're also going to measure road noise to see if it's still noisy, and then I'm going to give you guys my first driving impressions. But, and it's the big but, this car still has one major flaw that actually makes it dangerous to drive. Seriously guys, in some instances, it's pretty dangerous. But if you've driven a Tesla before, this won't actually be news to you. So, to find out what I'm talking about, stay tuned. Remember my big idea about traveling to the US for warm weather testing of the Polestar 3, Volvo EX90, etc. Unfortunately, we didn't raise enough funds for that trip, but we still raised about €1,000, so we're going to Spain instead. The plan is to travel the first week of April, and I've already booked a Polestar 3, Polestar 4. I'm awaiting confirmation on an EX90, Audi A6 e-tron, and Porsche Macan. €1,000 is still a tight budget though for me and a videographer to fly out to Spain, stay there for a week, and to eat food. So if you want to support the trip, every donation, big or small, is much appreciated. Remember, even €10 or €20 is a lot. So I'm going to link the updated GoFundMe down below if you want to support the trip. And no, this is not a vacation. Every dollar, every euro, every penny will go towards the trip and testing. So thank you very much. Now, on with the video. I have very limited time with this brand new, or the facelifted Tesla Model Y. I think like 70% of all the parts are new, so I mean, it's kind of a comprehensive facelift or almost a redesign, but yeah, Juniper, facelifted Model Y, whatever you want to call it. Because I only have this car the day, I picked it up at 10 o'clock, and what happened there? Why did it cancel? That was strange. So, this car has autopilot. Of course, it's beta, and in Europe, it's not full self-driving. And if you have it in adaptive cruise control, you can change lanes without having to cancel it. The only way to not cancel it and be able to change lanes on a motorway like this, you have to have the auto lane change on. And I don't know, maybe I just tucked it too hard. So it's kind of sensitive. I mean, it works fine. I wish I could, use the autopilot without it having to change lanes for me, but that's kind of the philosophy of the autopilot here. It's fine. If you don't want the car to bing and bong and cancel and disengage and engage, adaptive cruise control, every time you change lanes, first goes bing bong, ding dong, which just drives me completely crazy. You have to drive the car with lane change on, auto lane change on. And then if you tug the wheel too hard, because to change lanes like this, you have to just give it a little bit of a nudge, and then it changes lanes over. But if you do like this, I'll show you. Go back into the lane, and then I tug it too hard, work against the car, then yeah, it will cancel. And also, this car has a stock. Thank Tesla for not doing what you did with the Model 3. You actually have a stock to indicate with your indicators. But also with the auto lane change on, if you try to cancel it too quickly, or you try to cancel it and you're too late, and then it will confuse it, and then you'll start moving over to the right lane again. So just, you have to pay attention, get used to these systems. I've been driving this car just for a few hours. It's a little bit confusing sometimes, but I think if you live with this car, it's probably gonna get better, but it's by no means perfect. I haven't tried autopilot in the US where it is, fully functional. We don't have that here in Europe, so I can only judge the car from what we have here. But as I was saying, I only have this car until 3 or 4 o'clock today, so I'm going to try to cram both my normal range test and also my first driving impressions. And that was a little bit of the autopilot. Not my favorite, but it's better than the BYD C-Line I dropped last week, where the car actually crashed. This is very stable, like it holds the lanes. There's no ping-ponging or bouncing in the lanes. It's very confidence-inspiring. It's just the operation that can be a little bit cumbersome and a little bit difficult. But again, if you're used to it, if you live with a car, maybe it will get better. So I also talked about this having a stock, which is very nice, but it's not like the old stocks where it's like it's not even like a BMW stock. There's just only one And it doesn't self-cancel like, it can self-cancel when you center, but you can't, set it to the middle. You can't self-cancel it without risking to blink to the right or to the left again. But I mean, it works fine. I think you just have to get used to it, but I'm really thankful that Tesla have actually given us a stock. And then, of course, I have done a full tour of this car on the exterior and on the interior. The exterior is new, the interior is new. I like the interior. Infotainment system is still the same. It's fast and snappy to use, but also it's a little bit cumbersome. Some of the functions and icons are buried in menus, like the temperature here. I don't understand. There's so much real estate here, but it's the thing you have to hit is so small. And then now with these cars where they have these driver alert monitoring systems, if you pay attention to the screen for too long, the car will beep at you. And if it does that like 3 times, it will cancel auto steer completely until you put the car into park and you start driving again, which is just annoying. So again, not perfect, but it is an improvement over the old car. An improvement is also road noise, but I don't think it's as big of a leap as from the Model 3 when we got the facelift of that. That really, went from being a very noisy car to being a very quiet car. I think this is more noisy than that car, but I hadn't started instrumented road noise testing of cars at the point when I drove that car like almost a year ago, the Tesla Model 3, so I'll have to retest that. But at the end of the video, I'm going to show you the results of my instrumented testing, and this car is very sensitive to the different asphalt types. Like here where the asphalt is coarse, it's noisy. Let's see if we move into the left lane. Well, I don't think there's a large difference here. But at least in the instrumented testing, there's a big difference between good and bad asphalt. And then the last thing about what they've done with this Tesla Model Y is that they have softened up the suspension, but again, not as big of a jump as a leap or an improvement as with the Tesla Model 3, which went from being a very choppy riding car to becoming a very comfortable car. This has gone from a very choppy car to a little less choppy car. Like on my way to where I do my range test here, on a stretch of motorway on the E6 northward, the asphalt is really bad, and this just follows the contours, and it's softer, but it's not as soft as that Model 3 where that almost got floaty. So I think this is a nice compromise, but over like joints in the motorway, it's loud, and you can really feel the thumps through the suspension. So that's just my quick impressions of this car. Improvement over the old car, but not as big of an improvement as I think they did with the Tesla Model 3, but the stock is very, very welcome. So we're headed northward on the E6 motorway. The weather today is fine. We've had a little bit of drizzle, damp roads. Now the roads seem to be dry. Also have a headwind of 3 to 4 meters per second on our way northward to our turnaround point. And after about 40 minutes on the road, half an hour, our average consumption is 22 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. And I don't think that is bad with a headwind. Okay guys, this is also something I was worried about. Look at that, guys. We're going 120 kilometers on the motorway, and then the car breaks down to, I don't know, 87, 86, and it's going 101, and then why is it braking? What's going on? I'm not even touching anything. There's no traffic. It's completely clear. So on this stretch of road, north of Oslo on the E6, we've now passed Hamar. We're on our way to Moelv, and always with every Tesla I've driven since, I don't know, I started testing on this stretch of road like 5 years ago, they phantom brake, where they just brake out of nowhere, and that was the first instance it braked that much. Right down the road it braked like from 120 to 118. That's not bad, but I do not understand why, Tesla, why do you phantom brake? So I don't know, the last time I drove the Tesla Model 3 on this stretch of road on our way up and down, the car phantom braked like 20-25 times. So we're gonna see. I'm gonna keep you guys updated if it happens again. And there we go again. What's going on? Look at this, guys. I'm not touching anything, and now we're going 70 kilometers an hour. Why is the car, I mean, I was talking about this autopilot system being confidence inspiring, like it being safe in the lane, and it is, but it's not safe when you're going 120 kilometers an hour on the motorway, and then all of a sudden, without any notice, the car just breaks down to 70. Yeah, this is a real issue. It's not as bad as I remember it being, because we're now nearing, you know, our turnaround point, and at this point in time, I think most Teslas would already have, you know, phantom brake, or previously they would have phantom brake several more times. But why don't Tesla engineers in Norway drive on this stretch of road, one of the, you know, busiest stretches of road in the country, and do testing for themselves and just fix these issues manually? I don't understand how that's possible. You've been selling cars in Norway for, I don't know, since 2012, 13 years. Why, Tesla? Why? Answer me down below, because I'm so curious to find out. So my last update was 10 minutes ago maybe, and I've already experienced like 5 or 6 more phantom brakings. Yeah, so it's not improved. I don't think it's improved at all on this stretch of road, so it is really, really bad. So we're now at our halfway point. We're gonna turn around here, and after almost an hour on the road, our average consumption is at 21.1 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. So it's dropped a little bit. It's going to be interesting to see what the consumption is once we get back to our turnaround point. So we're going to turn around here, and then we're going to exit. No, we're going to enter the motorway again on its southbound side, and then yeah, we're going to head towards back towards where we started. And then once we get there, I'm going to give you guys an update on the consumption. We're going to connect to a charger and see what charging speed we get, you know, just after passive heating of the battery. This car does, of course, preconditioning via the navigation system, but in this test, we don't do that. We do that in a long trip test. So we're not going to be able to do that, you know, this week, but hopefully I'm going to get a press car again. But yeah, phantom braking, a real issue, and yeah, it's turned a relatively positive experience into a negative one for me. Sad to say, guys, but that's just how I feel. We're now back here at where we're going to charge, or where we started here at Ionity in Dal. So the reason I'm not using Tesla superchargers is the reason I don't use Tesla superchargers in this test is because it's going to be the same for every car. It's a standard route where I start here at Ionity in Dal, we go north to Moelv, and then go back again. There's been some variations on this range test throughout the years, depending on what sponsors I have here. But, well, I don't have a charging sponsor now because sponsors seem to be hard to come by the past year. It was easier a few years ago. So we're stopping the timer here now, an hour and, let's stop at an hour and 55. And also, the reason I don't do preconditioning, as I said, is because this is a range test where we want to try to get the most efficiency, the lowest consumption, and that means not preconditioning the battery because that uses energy and raises the consumption. Most cars today do have active preconditioning, especially, you know, when they're at this price point, and normally they work automatically. Some of them are manual, and they work for the most part flawless. You're going to get the speed that the manufacturer claims at the set percentage. So that's not as interesting anymore, but I also do that in a long trip test where we take the car out on a long trip and we charge 1, 2, and sometimes even 3 times depending on the weather, depending on the car. So what we do is that we connect and we see what speed we get with passive preconditioning of the battery, or passive conditioning of the battery, because that is more interesting, because there's a larger variable and also a larger difference between the claimed and also what we normally see, as we've tested in different videos. So we're now back here, and then we're gonna just shortly, I'm gonna show you guys the consumption here once we stop. So there we go. I'm just gonna show you guys the camera here now, and after an hour and 45 minutes on the road, and I was a little slow to stop the timer, so that's an hour and 45, we're gonna round it down. Our average consumption is 20.3 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. Yeah, so it's actually started to snow outside now, but it is like plus 2 or 3 degrees. It's been 3 degrees on this whole trip, but it's a little bit colder exactly here. So the charge port on the Model Y is here at where it's always been, and it is electrically operated. You push the bottom corner and then it opens up. You can also open it via the infotainment system screen. So we're out here with 32% state to charge. This car at a lower percent state of charge, and if we had preconditioned the battery, should peak at 250 kilowatts, but not at an Ionity charger. And that is because Ionity chargers are, like every charger here in Europe, bound by the CCS2 standard, and that limits the output to 500 amps, and with a 400 volt architecture, that's 200 kilowatts. And then it dials it down to 400 amps after a few minutes. So you can only get that speed at a Tesla supercharger where they aren't bound by the CCS standard because they're their own proprietary technology, and they can go up to like 625 amps. So 32% state of charge. I'm guessing, oh, do I even want to guess what charging speed we're gonna get now? Maybe 100 kilowatts if we're lucky, because it is cold outside, and it is ramping up a little bit. 70. If we get like close to 150, I'm actually going to be impressed because we haven't preconditioned the battery. But 99, okay, that is actually pretty good. 105, 106, 107. Okay, a little bit more. Okay, that's actually not bad. That is actually not bad. Without preconditioning the battery, 32% stated charge, 3 degrees Celsius outside. It is still climbing. It's actually still climbing. Wow. 130 kilowatts. 131 is climbing still a little bit. I just want to jump in the car because it is really cold outside. So, like it's windy. Let's see, 140 guys. Okay, that is actually very, very good and impressive. 140 kilowatts at 32% stated charge with an outside temperature of currently 2 degrees Celsius, but it's been 3 degrees throughout the whole trip. I think that is actually very good. Before I reveal the range we were able to get out of this car today, which is very impressive, let's look at the results of my instrumented noise test. So this car has double pane glass, which a lot of people, think reduce road noise a lot, but most of the road noise, especially here in Northern Europe, where our asphalt is a lot coarser than other places in the world, comes from tire noise. So from the underside of the car, from the wheel wells, and also from the lower parts of the doors. This, having double pane glass here or in the windshield, will only for the most part help with wind noise, and that's not a problem with this car. In most cars, wind noise is very nicely suppressed, and also some noise off the wing mirrors. But that's what double pane glass usually helps with, and for me, I think it's more of like a marketing gimmick in a lot of cars, because I've had cars that are a lot quieter than this with single pane glass, so that tells you a different story. So we do instrumented testing now with a proper microphone, a proper software, where where we get a graph. We do it over time. I'm not just holding up one of these decibel meters that you can buy cheap off the internet with a readout, like a live readout on a screen or a phone. That's not reliable at all, and people who do that type of measurement, at best it is misleading, at worst it's so inaccurate. So I just want to get that out of the way. On this channel, you're going to get as proper testing as possible. So at 80 kilometers an hour, we did 2 measurements, one at 65.5 decibels and the other at 65 decibels. So that averages out to 65 decibels. At 100 kilometers an hour, we did 2 measurements also, one at 68 decibels and another at 65.5 decibels for an average of 67.5 decibels. And then at 120 kilometers an hour, I did 3 measurements, one at 70 decibels, one at 70 decibels, and the last one at 69.5 decibels. So that averages out to 70 decibels. So I'm going to show you guys the last graph now, the last measurement at 120 kilometers an hour. And the first 30 seconds or 30 seconds is in the left lane, and the other minute or minute and a half is in the right lane, where it raises like 2 or 3 decibels on average, and then I went into the left lane again. And that is often I see with these cars, because depending on how coarse or worn the asphalt is, we're going to have different types of measurements. That's why I always try to do it in the right lane and on the same stretch of road, because normally the right lane is more worn than the left lane. But normally, maybe we have like a decibel or half a decibel in difference, but with this car, I've seen the biggest difference from the left to the right lane in any car. I mean, look at that graph again. That's like 2 or 2.5 decibels, which is huge. I mean, that is pretty large. So that's interesting. So compared to the other cars we tested, we started doing tests a few months ago with these noise tests. This car is more noisy than the BYD Sea Lion, which in of itself wasn't a very particularly noisy car. But I remember with that car, that was more sensitive to wind noise. This is more sensitive to road noise. So maybe in the future, I'm going to have more advanced graphs where we show the different noise levels or resonances at different frequencies. But I don't know what software I can use to do such detailed measurements. If you know, let me know in the comment section down below. Now for the range results. So what we do is that we take the usable battery capacity of this car, which is 75 kilowatt hours. We divide it by the consumption, 20.3 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. And then we subtract 3% for heat and discharging losses. So under today's conditions, we were able to get 358 kilometers of range at 120 kilometers an hour or 75 miles an hour. And that is very impressive. I mean, the last time I tested a Model 3 was the pre-facelifted version back in late 2021. That was also a long range, but that had a smaller battery pack. It had smaller aftermarket winter wheels. This has 19-inch wheels. That car had 18, so maybe it not having the aero wheels did raise the consumption or offset, you know, that tire difference or wheel differences completely. I don't know, but it was between 9 and 11 degrees Celsius that day, and we had an average consumption of 19.6 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. So today being, you know, windy and also for the most part being damp and a little bit dry patches, and also only 3 degrees Celsius, that is actually very good results. And I think when it comes to range testing of cars in this class of vehicle during these conditions, I think this is class leading. But Tesla have always been class leading when it comes to efficiency, getting the most range out of their electric cars. I mean, Tesla have, you know, been selling cars for 12, 13 years now here in Norway and globally. And a lot of, you know, the manufacturers have catched up and also surpassed Tesla in a lot of ways. But where Tesla is still the best is in efficiency and not having the biggest batteries and still being able to, well, get more range than the competitors. But with this car, it is a huge improvement. Like, I like this car. I like the way it looks on the exterior. I like the way it looks on the interior. These seats, maybe not my favorite. And also the seating position, I think I'd prefer it like a Tesla Model 3. The fact that it has a stock is an improvement over the Tesla Model 3. But for me, it's the user interface here. It's a lot of the user interface here. And also that damn phantom braking. It probably happened 20 times today. So a small reduction compared to the last time I drove a Tesla, but it's still so terrible. And it doesn't matter, you can choose to just use your adaptive cruise control. It's still phantom brakes. And it doesn't matter, like it's not changing the speed limit. It did that once, but I really don't know. So if you work at Tesla, tell me why you haven't improved phantom braking. Like, these cars have been out for so many years here in Norway. This stretch of road opened like 4 or 5 years ago, so there shouldn't be an issue. So guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Let me know what you think about the new Tesla Model Y down below and the results. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please drop me a thumbs up down below. And for more car content, as always, please subscribe. See you guys later and goodbye.